what if all housing providers were held responsible for their level of service? Why aren't landlords asked to provide the same amount of personal data as they ask of their tenants? The housing system is increasingly inequitable, and we're seeing a rise in the power imbalances between landlords and tenants. So maybe the last time when you applied for a rental, you were asked to provide all of this information about yourself for your landlord and your property manager. But what do you know about them? So what if you could know your landlord? That was the question that prompted us to create the Know Your Landlord Universe, a fictional website that you could access data on your landlord in the same way that they do around tenants. The idea was to prompt a discussion around the unequal access to housing and data collection between tenants and landlords. The site also profiled 4 of the key major issues affecting our housing system: instability and insecurity of tenure, financial instability and insecurity, unsafe and unhealthy housing, and importantly, increased data collection on tenants. Across different jurisdictions in Australia, we have different rental regulations, but there is no consistent no grounds eviction legislation across all states. Australian renters are actually some of the most insecure renters in comparable systems. One of the outcomes of this project was to advocate for an end to no grounds evictions across all of Australia. We also know that we have one of the most expensive housing systems in the world. The majority of renters are in housing stress, which means paying 30% or more on your rent. A recent report by Choice showed that for medium income renters, most of them were paying about 1/3 of their income on rent. And for those that were at the lower end of the income spectrum, they were paying over 50% of their income on rent. If you've ever rented a place in Australia, you might also have noticed issues with mold, poor heating, poor cooling. All of these are actually attributes of unsafe and unhealthy housing. There are very few minimum standards in Australia, and there's an increasing amount of research that shows actually housing has a large impact on your health. Some excellent research by Professor Emma Baker showed that actually renting took more years off your life than did smoking. That's a reflection of how poor our housing stock is for renters. And the 4th key area was this far more hidden aspect of data collection. So once upon a time, when you applied for a rental, you were basically asked to give maybe 3 pay slips to prove that you had an income that could pay the rent, and possibly a reference or 2. A recent report by Choice showed that 60% of renters had reported feeling uncomfortable with having to provide the amount of data and the type of data that was requested of them just to secure housing. So there are a few problems here. First of all is this excess collection of data. So how much data do you really need to provide to make an assessment on your worthiness as a tenant? The second issue is around what happens with that data. There's not a lot of clarity around how that data is stored. It's not just you putting in data, it's where that data goes. Part of the reason of creating Know Your Landlord was to demonstrate how unfair and unequal this data collection process is. We don't need that much data on tenants, and despite what we're trying to show on our Know Your Landlord site, we actually don't need that data on our landlords either. So if any of this speaks to you, or you know someone in your family that this might help, head over to the Know Your Landlord site and look at the universe we've created. There are some discussion points as well that might be useful for you to try and facilitate conversations around how to make the rental system fairer.